All right, so now we're going to look at positioning. And I do assume that you guys know the basics of CSS, so relative positioning, absolute positioning, etc. I'll explain it a little bit, but you should always learn, for instance, CSS before a CSS framework or JavaScript before a JavaScript framework. It's just really important to know those fundamentals, or you're going to have a tough time. You're just going to have a tough time learning overall. So let's click on layout and position, and over here 06 layout and position, and we're going to start off here by creating an element that has a relative positioning, and then an element inside of it that's positioned absolute. That way you can say, if you want it in the top right, top left, you can position it wherever you want. So let's just add a class of relative, which does exactly what you would think, sets the position to relative. And then we'll set a width. Let's do width. Actually, you know what? I want to do half, but with Emmet, I think that'll mess it up. So we'll do that after. Let's do a height of 12 and a background of red, let's say 200. And then we'll go in and add the width, just because of how it's formatted. So 1/2. I think Emmet screws it up sometimes. So for that, let's put a paragraph in here, and we'll just say this is going to be the parent element. Okay, so we see that on the screen. And then we'll go ahead and add a div in here with absolute. So positioning in absolute, and let's say we want it on the bottom 0, and we can do a class of right-0, and we'll do bg-red, and we'll make it a little darker. And then in here we'll put a paragraph and say this is the absolute child, and save. And now you can see that that is positioned to the bottom right of the parent element. And just to kind of get more familiar with this, we'll position the absolute child on different areas, different corners, and so on. I'll also show you how to span the top edge, bottom, etc. So again, relative. Let's do a height of 32, and we'll do a width of 32, and BG-yellow, let's do 100. And then in here we'll do absolute, and say left-0. So we want the top left corner, so left 0 and then top 0. And we'll do a height of 16. And a width of 16. So we'll just have a box, and then BG-yellow and 300. All right, so we'll save that, and you can see the box is now positioned to the top left. So to do it to the right corner is going to be very similar. We're just going to change left here to right 0. Okay, so now it's in the right-hand corner. If we want it in the bottom left, we'll just change top to bottom. Okay, bottom right, we'll just change left to right, and top to bottom, like that. Okay, now we can also span the top edge if you want it to go like all the way across. So we'll paste that in, and then let's change, let's see, we want the top 0, but instead of left 0, I'm going to use this inset. So inset on the x-axis 0, and then just get rid of the width, because the width will restrict it. So get rid of that and save, and now you can see that it spans the top edge. All right, if we want to span the left edge, what we could do is go ahead and paste that in, and instead of inset x, we're going to use inset y, because that's the vertical axis, and we're also going to get rid of the height, because that will restrict it. And let's see, that didn't work. That's because we want this to be on the left. So absolute inset y. Oh, we need a width. It's not showing up because we have no width. So we'll add that. There we go. So now we have a width of 16, and it's spanning the left edge. And if you want to pause the video and try these, on your own, you can do that as well. So to span the right edge, we're just going to change left to right. Okay, so now it goes along that. And if we want to do the bottom edge, it's going to be similar to what we did here on the top. So we'll grab that, and let's change, say, bottom 0. And now you can see it spans across the bottom edge. Now, next I want to look at some of the display classes. And we're not going to look at all of them just because display flex, display grid, we're going to have separate sections for those. But like block, inline, inline block, hidden, these values we can all use specific classes for. So I'll just have a div here. And let's say lorem 60. So we just have a bunch of text here. And then I'm going to wrap, just take some random text and wrap a span. I'll just say this is inline, and then I'm going to give this span a class. So if we want to display it inline, we can simply set a class of inline. All right, then I'll go down here, and you should know that inline blocks don't go all the way across. Like you can have inline elements right next to each other. If it's a block level element, then the next whatever's after it is going to go on the next line, and then you also have inline block. So let's do we'll say span. Oops, why isn't that working? Span class, and let's say inline block. Say this is inline block, and let's put span here. We'll say this is block, and give this a class of block. And then we also have hidden. So let's do span. This is hidden. And we'll set a class of hidden. All right, so let's save that. And if we check it out, so this is inline and this is inline block, should just stay within the flow here. So let's see. Oh, this is inline. I need a space after that. Put a space there. Yeah, so that's right here. I probably should have made it bold or something. Actually, we can do that. We can say font bold. Yeah, we'll just add that to that, and hidden, even though that we're not going to see it. All right, so this is inline. It just flows, inline block, and then the block class is going to put what is after it on the next level, and then this is hidden isn't going to show at all. All right, so if you want something hidden, and that's display none, by the way. It's not visibility hidden. All right, so if we look at it, let's see, we want to, let's click in here, and I want to find the hidden. So right here, span class hidden, you'll see is display none. All right, I know that might be a little confusing because you do have visibility hidden available in CSS, but these are display classes. Okay, so if you don't want something to be shown, you just give it the class of hidden. Now, I also want to look at z-indexes. So z-index is kind of the placement on how far, away from you or how far towards you, towards the screen something is. So I'm going to just do a relative class here, and we'll do a height of 36. And then I want to have a bunch of absolute. So let's say absolute, and we'll do a width of 24. And let's do a height 24, and say BG-blue. And I'm going to want these to be different shades, but I'll change that after. And then I'll say times, we'll do times 5. All right. And then let's just put some numbers in here. So we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. Now, these are all absolute right now. They're all in the same spot. They're just on top of each other. So I could give these different, we'll do different left values. So we'll say left 10. For that one, let's say left 20, and let's see, this one we'll do left -40 and 60, and all these values are down below as well. and then 80. All right, so we can at least kind of see, and then we'll change the shading as well. So let's do like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right. So by default, the top one is going to be kind of underneath, you know, and then the 2 is on top, 3, 4, 5, and so on. So if we want to change the z-index, we have these z classes right here. So Z0 will be obviously z-index 0. We have 10, 20, 30, 40, etc. So I'm going to set the first one here, which is underneath everything. Let's add a class of, we'll say z-40. If I save that, you'll see it now goes on top of 2, because 2 doesn't have a z-index. If I want, let's say 3 to go on top of 4, I could do z dash, and I could put 10. That's going to work as well, because 4 doesn't have a z-index. It's 0 by default. Now let's say I wanted 4 to be on top. I could add, let's say z dash 20, and now that is on top. And if I wanted 5 on top of 4, then I could do anything higher than z20, so say z30. And there we go. So pretty simple to understand. You know, the higher it is, the closer to you, the closer to the screen it is. The lower it is, the further back. All right, and then the last thing I want to show you is floats. This is not something I use. I mean, I don't use floats in CSS. I don't really use the float classes here as well, but they are available. So we'll have a class, let's say it'll take up half of the page or half of the container. And see what I mean? When I use half, Emmet doesn't really work correctly. So let's do this and then just add half. All right, and then we'll have an image here, and I have the assets folder. So if we go up one level into assets and then the image folder, I'm just going to use image 1. And we'll put a paragraph below it, and then some dummy text. All right. So if I want to float this image, first of all, let's give it a width and a height. So we'll say class, let's set this to h dash, we'll do 48 and width dash 48. Okay, that makes it a little smaller. Now if I want to float this image, I can add simply a class of float, let's say float right. Save that, and now you can see it floats to the right. If I want to float it to the left, I can do that as well. And let's see, is there anything else? Yeah, float none as well. But yeah, if you have maybe an article, I'd probably add some margin on this, like M4, something like that. But yeah, if you have an article, you want to float the image, that's an option as well. All right, so that's going to be it for positioning and display classes. In the next video, I want to talk about backgrounds and shadows.